All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And good evening, one and all, and welcome to the X Zone. I trust that everyone had a great weekend. Summer is coming. It's getting nice and warm. A lot of people visiting the Niagara region as Laura and I drove around this weekend doing our shopping and just enjoying the beautiful scenery as all the orchards start to bloom and the cherry blossoms are out, the apple blossoms are out. It's beautiful. It truly is beautiful. The most wonderful part of Canada to live in, especially this time of year. Like I said, everything is coming into bloom. Everything is coming back to life after a winter sleep that seemed so long this year. And you're listening to us on your hometown radio, Classic 1220 CFAJ here in St. Catharines, which is just down the street from us, from our broadcast center of the X Zone Broadcast Network. Also on Mutual Broadcast Network and on Talkstar Radio Network. If you'd like to send me an email, xzone at Xzone Radio TV on all social media sites, Xzone Radio TV. And this hour, my guest is Gwilda Wiyaka. She is a shamanic practitioner, author, New Age musician, spiritual teacher, and dynamic host of the internationally acclaimed programs Mission Evolution and Stairways to Heaven. With decades of experience bridging ancient wisdom and modern understanding, Gwilda has become a trusted voice in the consciousness evolution and spiritual empowerment movement. Her work helps guide seekers through transformation in an ever-changing world. Now, you can explore more of her teachings and media at www.missionevolution.org. Gwilda, welcome back to the X Zone. It's great having you with us again.
Oh, Rob, thank you. I love spending time with you and your X Zone Nation.
Gwilda, for those of our listeners who may not know your work or they're new to your work, how did your personal journey lead you to becoming a practicing shaman?
Well, it was probably the last thing I would have considered. I was in college, and growing up, I was in a kind of a volatile situation, my family. And so I had to, it was in my best interest to know who was going to pop off when so I could dodge them. And I was fairly intuitive, and so I learned to turn that intuition on high and really be able to read what was vigilant, read what was going on around me. Well, as I got older, I still had, it was on default there on high, and I didn't realize that, but I was getting input all the time from everybody. And by the time I reached college age and I was in the dorms, it was, casualties of the 60s and 70s. People were on drugs, and I'd get contact highs, and it was terrible. I was just bombarded, and I was really failing fast. And one night I was working in a truck stop to make ends meet, college kid, and it was raining out, and we were closing down the restaurant portion, I was. And this little couple walks up, and as they get closer, I could see she had a scarf on, and they were wet. And it was a Native American couple, and it was in Wyoming. We weren't too far from the Wind River Reservation. And they knocked on the door because I'd had it locked, and I invited them in because that was the day and age where the payphones were indoors.
Oh my
you put
gosh,
a dime
yeah.
in them, right? And they wanted to use the phone. So I let them use the phone, and then they turned and they went to walk back out. And they said, they said their truck had broken down, and his brother was going to come get them. I said, well, stay in here. It's wet out there. Sit down. I've got some coffee left. You can wait for him in here. I'm still cleaning up. And then I went in the back and I saw, oh, we have a couple pieces of pie left that would have just gotten thrown out because it wouldn't have been fresh by the next day.
Mm-hmm.
So I gave him those. And when the brother pulled up, they both got up to leave. And he walked over to me and he reached out like he was going to shake my hand. And I reached my hand out and he turned it over and he put a folded napkin in my hand, closed my fingers over it. And he says, someday you'll need that, use it. I thought, what the heck? Do I need to blow my nose or what here? But anyway, I just stuffed it in my purse and forgot about it. But then it wasn't several weeks later, I was just really over the top. I was going through my purse, cleaning it out like you do, and I ran across that napkin. And it had a phone number on it, just kind of scratched out in pencil. And so I called him, and he started training me. He was a Lakota elder. He started training me in the shamanic way, and I studied with him for a good 6 years before he crossed over in his late 80s. And then from there, I felt like, it really helped. It saved my life because it taught me how to turn the volume knob down, right, and how to manage the gift. But then once he crossed, I felt like, I just didn't know enough. And so I started studying everything I could get my hands on: Choctaw, Arapaho, Navajo, wonderful teachers, Celtic, Tibetan, Peruvian,
Mm-hmm.
all sorts of shamanism, anybody I could learn from. And that's how it all got started.
I hope you don't take this next question the wrong way, but why do you think, or what do you think that he saw in you to give you that napkin with his contact information on it?
I asked him that very question one time, and he said, my student. Okay, my student, and I got a lot of flack from his people because there was a lot of his people that wanted to study under him and he
Mm-hmm.
didn't accept them. And then here comes this white female, right? I was not welcomed. But he said, my student has to have the capacity for an activation. That's what he said. And at one point, he did give me that activation. And that was what he said. And he was, man, a few words. Okay, but that's what he said to me.
What was the activation?
There are energy centers in the body. The Celts call them the three cauldrons of the soul.
Mm-hmm.
The Native Americans call them energy centers or power centers. There's one in the belly, one in the heart, and one in the head, but they're inactive unless, until you go through your process or you go through these, initiations, shamanic initiations, that sort of thing. And then that frees them up, sets them in motion. And once they're in motion, then you can manage frequency more accurately than most people do.
Would they be
And
the
that's what it
same
was
as
about.
would they be the same as the chakras?
No, but they are related to the chakras. They run off of the chakras. So they're energy centers. They're like these
Oh,
balls.
I
One's
see.
in the belly, one's in the
Mm-hmm.
heart, one's in the head.
Now, you're not only a shaman, but also an author, musician, teacher, and host. How do all these roles weave in together?
Well, the one thing that I've always been passionate about, Rob, is I've always had a feeling that big shakedowns were going to come in our lifetime,
Mm-hmm.
and that the ways were going to have to change, and people were going to have to become more connected with the earth and evolve. You think that would be devolving, but no, evolve spiritually for the planet to continue with us on it. Okay, and so that's really my life purpose, is to aid that evolution, if you will, in any way I can. And so all of these things actually are aligned to do that. The music I write is about these times. The books I write are about navigating these times. The shows that I do are bringing people on with leading edge information to help with these times. Or the Stairway to Heaven is teachings about these times and how to evolve personally to meet the challenges.
And speaking about your shows, what was the inspiration behind creating Mission Evolution and Stairway to Heaven?
Well, Stairway to Heaven was teachings, and they're little snippets. They're about, some of them are 15, some of them are 20 minutes long. And each one has a topic, but the topics are things that people need right now, like, how to manage emotion in a creative way without dumping it on somebody, or how to become more conscious of what you're doing with your energy, that sort of thing. The Mission Evolution was there's so many people out there that have really, really good leading edge information, whether it's medicine or spirituality or whatever, that really needs to get out there. And I really wanted to promote that, and that's what Mission Evolution does, is it brings these experts forward.
Now, speaking about your music, Gwilda, we're going to be playing some of your songs that you've written and recorded that are available for sale, and we'll let our listeners know where they can buy your CDs. When we come back from breaks, I fully enjoy listening to them, and I'm sure the members of the Exo Nation will enjoy them as well. How has your understanding of shamanism evolved over the years?
Well, one thing I started noticing up front is no matter which form I studied, they all had an amazing amount in common. Even the Aboriginals, who were totally isolated from in North America, have similar symbols in cave dwellings and that sort of thing. And the rituals, even though they vary tribe to tribe and nation to nation, they still have these core things that are the same. And the practice has been around for 50, 60,000 years. So what I decided in over the course of working with all of this is we need a translation point for today, for the people of today, because swallowing worms so you can vomit them up to show somebody that you've done an extraction isn't the Western way, okay? I think I'd lose clients if I did stuff like that. But the American people, or most of our modern people, want to hear the science behind the magic, if you will.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
And that's what I've really focused on, because it's physics. It's physics. It's straight. You could explain it through physics. So it's amazing.
I've got about a minute and a half before I have to go to my commercial break, Gwilda. Here's a quick question for you. What does modern-day shamanic practice look like in today's technological world?
Well, it's really fun. I always talk about being an urban shaman. So instead of beating a drum when I'm working, because I need repetitive motion to go into trance, I have recorded drumming CDs, and they're segmented out into a certain amount of time, so you know exactly when you're coming back. So in one ear, I have my drumming CD. In the other ear, I have a recording thing and a telephone, a headset, and I do long-distance sessions like that.
Truly fascinating. Gwilda, we've got to go for that break now. But Exo Nation, if you'd like more information about Gwilda Wiyaka, her website is www.missionevolution.org. And you can listen to all of Gwilda's past shows, whether it's The Science of Magic, Mission Evolution, or Stairway to Heaven, by going to www.xzbn.net. That's www.xzbn.net. And that's the website of the X Zone Broadcast Network. And also on that page, you'll have access to all the other programs that have been produced and are still being aired right here on the X Zone Broadcast Network. Coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, this is the X Zone. And you're listening to us on the Talkstar Radio Network, Mutual Broadcast Network, Talkstar Radio Network, X Zone Broadcast Network, and on your hometown radio, Classic 1220 CFAJ here in St. Catharines, and streaming us around the world on classic1220.ca. And welcome back, Exonation. That is One People, One Nation that was recorded and I believe written by our guest this hour, the one and only Miss Gwilda Wiyaka. Her website is www.missionevolution.org. I love your CD, Gwilda, and congratulations on that great song. The entire CD is just filled with wonderful music. But what is the backstory of One People, One Nation?
That's one of my favorite songs. It's a long one too. The backstory is what it says: "One people, one nation," and that my inspiration for it was, there's a Native American prophecies that there would be a time when the four nations would be split to the four corners of the earth, but the truth wouldn't be known, and the way would not return until the four nations came back together. And it speaks of these times. And so the song is about that, bringing it back together, seeing the lies that are able to slide in when you're polarized. There's nobody has the truth, okay? But if you bring all the information, all the people back together in heart, in love, in masculine and feminine balance, then the way will return. And that's what the song was about.
Now, Gwilda, where can people actually buy your CD?
If they go to my website, findyourpathhome.com, and simply go to the store, they can get it there.
It's a wonderful CD, and thank you for allowing us to share it with our listeners tonight.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. It was I did it to share.
Gwilda, many people think of shamanism as an ancient or tribal path, I should say. How is shamanism still relevant here in the 21st century?
Well, shamanism deals with the energetic aspect of life. Okay, some people would call it the quantum field or whatever. I'm not going to get into quantum physics, even if I could. But basically, everything expresses according to frequency. That's pretty basic. But when we treat illness or anything, we're doing it on the physical level mostly. Sometimes we address the emotional, and sometimes we address the mental. But we leave the spiritual or the energetic part to the churches, but they don't specialize in that. That's not what they do. They work with the morality of the people. But the energetic level is left untouched, untreated. And if we suffer a trauma, it impacts us on all four levels. And to recover from that trauma, we need to treat all four levels. And shamanism treats the energetic, or what we would call a spiritual level.
Can you explain the difference between traditional shamanism and contemporary or neo-shamanism?
I'll give it my best.
Okay.
The contemporary, the original shamanism was designed for the mindset, the framework of each tribe, of each people. And they didn't need any kind of a scientific explanation. They just needed to know it worked. And so it carried a lot of sleight of hand and theatrics along with it to get the patient engaged, okay? Because the person has to be engaged to embrace their healing. They have to take on the frequencies that are being offered through the healing. That worked for them, but when the anthropologists started studying the shaman, they saw this sleight of hand and just decided it was showmanship and woo-woo, right? And they say it's this mystical, magical practice. It really isn't, but the rituals appeared that way because they were designed for people that weren't into science or anything like that. However, it holds true in contemporary. Like I said, if you can come up with the scientific explanation for why it does work, which is what I've dedicated most of my career to. But the problem is in the original shamanic cultures, you had to apprentice half your life. You had to go through major initiations, and you had to have a genetic predisposition to be a shaman. Here, you take a weekend workshop and hang out your shingle because there's no regulation and there's no tribe to hold people accountable. So it's a mixed bag. I mean, it's a practice that's very much needed in our modern day world. And at the same time, buyer beware.
So how would somebody know who to trust and who not to trust? Who is a real shaman and who is a paper hanger shaman?
That there is the question, right? And also there can be a real shaman, but they aren't aligned well to work with you, say for instance. So one of the problems I've seen is people taking these ayahuasca bus tours. A bunch of them drive down and they all get the ayahuasca initiation without any preparation. I mean, the shaman, when they were using that as initiation there, and we don't, that's very rare that you use drugs for initiation, but they do there. And they were prepared and went through process for years before they actually went into the initiation. And so the people that go on these, they go to a perfectly good shaman, don't
Hmm.
get me wrong, but they are not prepared for the initiation, and it kind of blows people out. So there's that. You can even have a perfectly good shaman, and it's just not a good match. But the other thing is, in the old days, they would know a shaman was known by his reputation. And that's still probably about the best way to go. The next thing is, where did you study? How many hours do you have? What have you studied? That sort of thing. You ask those questions.
So I'm trying to figure out how to ask this question. So how relevant, or how does somebody actually know if shamanism will work for them or with them? For example, are all shamans a perfect fit for anyone seeking a shaman, or are there certain shamans that are better fits for this kind of person or this kind of problem? And how does the person actually find the right shaman to fit their individual needs?
Well, shamanism is as complex, if not more, than being a medical doctor, really. I mean, the ancient form. And everybody had their strong suit, just like your doctors now have their specialties.
Okay.
It wasn't quite that fragmented, but so if you're looking for somebody that can look at the spiritual aspect of a physical illness, you're
Hmm.
looking for somebody that's good with medical intuitive. Okay. If you're looking for somebody to help you with a possessing spirit, you're looking for somebody that specializes in deep possession. And it goes on and on and on like that. It's a very wide field. And again, you just really have to ask the questions. And again, you know how you go to a doctor and they might be a perfectly good doctor, but you don't feel like they hear you. They're just not a good fit for you. Or somebody else might think they're wonderful. You also have to have it has to feel good personally.
You are talking about ayahuasca, and for those people listening tonight who have no idea what ayahuasca is, can you explain it to them?
Well, I'll do the best I can. It's a plant medicine, and I believe it's considered a hallucinogen. It in large doses it can be fatal. It can cause paralysis, but it what it does is it disassociates the initiate from everyday life. It totally takes them away from everyday life into a spiritual trance-like state. But it's been being done medically rather than through strenuous initiation like Vision Quest and that sort of thing. People think of shamanism, they think of a lot of drugs. Well,
Hmm.
that's really not the case. It's really the exception rather than the rule that there's drug initiation. But it's an herb that's used in South America.
So, if anybody wanted to have an ayahuasca experience, they'd have to go down to South America?
That's what they do.
My goodness.
Hmm.
What is soul retrieval? I've heard you talk about soul retrieval with your guests on Mission Evolution, and I was wondering if you could explain it to our audience, because in my understanding, it's a very important part of what shamanism is about.
It is. To understand soul retrieval, we have to understand soul loss. Now, we don't lose our soul, but what it refers to is when we're put under duress, stress, as adults or children,
Hmm.
very often a deep trauma, part of ourselves will decide, I'm not going to do that again. That did not work well for me. And we'll disconnect from that particular behavior. Okay.
Yeah.
So say a 2-year-old throws a fit and they get spanked for, saying no. Well, they lose their right, if you will, or disconnect from their right to set boundaries. Okay. So then as they go through life, they'll be one of these people that no matter what they say, people will cross their boundaries anyway until you and they can understand it. They can go to therapy, they can think it through, they can understand how they feel about it. But to get the pattern from to get the pattern to cease and desist, you need to reclaim the frequency that was that the person disconnected from at the time of the trauma. And that's soul retrieval. The shaman goes into what we call non-ordinary reality, which is basically a trance state. And what in that trance state we do is we go into the other person's field, we find where they've disconnected. We resonate with the frequency they disconnected from and bring that frequency back to them. But then the person has to integrate. They have to integrate it into the physical, the mental, and the emotional fields. So if they've been in avoidance, they'll continue to be in avoidance because they've burned these neurological pathways to avoid a particular behavior. And so they'll have to stop and say, okay, now I have the option here. I can do it this way or I can do it that way. And once they do that enough, well, then they burn new pathways and it becomes a true option. They'll have to move through the emotions that come up around it. And sometimes there's even body memories if it was a deep trauma.
All right, Gwilda, stand by. You and I have to take our break at the bottom of the hour. And X Zone Nation, our guest this hour is Gwilda Wiyaka. And if you'd like to find out more about Gwilda, her radio shows, and so on, there's two websites, www.missionevolution.org. That's www.missionevolution.org. And findyourpathhome.com. That's findyourpathhome.com. This is the X Zone. I'm Rob McConnell, coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. And you're listening to us on your hometown radio, Classic 1220 CFAJ AM, and streaming us at classic1220.ca and on the X Zone Broadcast Network, Talkstar Radio Network, and Mutual Broadcast Network. Whatever you do, don't go away. We'll be back right after this short break.
The end has come, the night has fallen. I have reached the end of days. What's real is not, reason fails me. I've gone beyond all known pathways. This is the end of reason. This is the end of time. I am alone, alone and broken. I am apart from what was mine. I stand now at the edge of the abyss, nowhere to go. The time has come, I must choose to take the leap or be laid low. This is the end of reason. This is the end of time. I travel on, it is my season to travel on the winds of time.
That's Gwilda Wiyaka singing The Winds of Time. It's from her CD that's available at findyourpathhome.com. Gwilda, what's the backstory about this song, Winds of Time?
Well, the winds of time are absolutely about these times. I think all of us can relate to, this is the night's fallen. I've gone beyond all pathways, and it's like we've tried to play this out as far as we can, and things are falling apart all around us. But we're just one step away from taking that leap of faith into a new way of being, and that's what the song is about. It actually has another part, and then when the parts start singing together. And so the other one it speaks of the other side, the hope, that this is such a transformative time, and that there can be joy and abundance on the other side of this transition.
Would it be fair to say that every native village would have a shaman?
I don't know. I know that they wanted to, okay,
Hmm.
because they really were the center of their community. They did the naming ceremonies. They ran, if you were Lakota, they ran the sweat lodges. They brought power animals for the young ones when they were born. They counseled. They were the ones that would go into trance and find where where they should put their next camp, where the game was. So they were a center of a community. Now, if every community was able to have one, I don't know.
What is the difference between a shaman and a witch doctor?
Well, the witch doctors usually leans towards voodoo, which is shamanism. It's just African shamanism. So the witch doctor idea just leans a little more towards that. But it's the same job.
But in some of the westerns that were produced in the United States, weren't there references made to the witch doctor in the tribes?
Yes, but I think, and I could be wrong. I'm not a good historian here, but I think again that's Hollywood in
Okay.
that I think that that's the way it was interpreted, that's the way it was presented. But I don't think the tribes called their medicine men or their holy men or their shaman witch
You know what?
doctors.
I'm sorry. I stand corrected. I wasn't thinking about witch doctor. I was thinking about medicine man. Is there a difference between a medicine man and a shaman?
I think that they can cross over a lot. A
Hmm.
medicine man probably focuses more on working with the herbs, working with healing, that sort of thing, while the shaman works with a little bit more of the spiritual aspect. But I do think that they're pretty similar.
All right. How does your work incorporate energy healing or vibrational medicine?
Yes, I'm sure a lot of people have heard of Reiki. Well, Reiki is a modern form of hands-on healing that's just about every shaman is versed in. But basically, the light's only as clear as the window through which it shines, and that's why all the initiations are necessary. But once a person has trained and has cleared their facility enough from their issues and their patterns, and are able to hook up really directly with earth and sky in the four directions, and there's ceremonies around doing that,
Hmm.
then you can run energy. You pull it in from above and below, and then you run it out your hands. And one hand is a negative pull, and one hand is a positive pull. When you put the hands across from each other, energy will flow between them. Then you put the hands on either side of the client, and that energy flows through the client. What it does, healing is about balance, illness is about imbalance. That's balanced energy that's being offered. And I've worked with somebody that absolutely didn't believe in any of this, my stepfather, and he had shoulder surgery, and I did that, and it made the pain go away. And he said, "I don't care if I understand what you're doing, just keep doing it, right?" Because it settles down nerves that are misfiring. It brings back balance and it brings back healing.
What are some of the common misconceptions people have about shamanism that you're asked about when you go out and do one of your lectures or one of your teaching sessions or are talked to by the media?
I think one of the biggest ones is in the Americas here. A lot of people first they try to destroy the Native Americans' practices,
Hmm.
make them illegal, et cetera, et cetera. Then people take a weekend workshop and try to appropriate their ceremonies, and that caused a lot, and charge for it. Okay, and that caused a lot of anger among the Native people, understandably so. But I was giving a lecture one time on shamanism, and a Native American lady came in. I think she was half Hispanic, half Native American, and she says, "What does a white woman like you have any business talking about shamanism?" And I said, "Well, I said to her, I can understand why you'd be angry about this." And, I said, "However, what you need to understand is there's a shamanic practice behind every nationality on the planet. And the word shaman is Siberian in origin, not Native American. Nobody owns the wind. And if we don't pull this together and cooperate, we're going to blow it apart. And that's really, I think, the biggest misconception is that shamanism is owned and originated with the Americas. It did not. It's different every place, but
Okay,
it's very
let me
similar.
ask you. Let me ask you this before we get too far into the direction that we're going. You said that shamanism was found in every religion.
No, no, no. In every nationality.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
So Tibetan, Celtic, it goes on and on.
but how did this knowledge get spread around the world?
Isn't that a good question? I really don't know. If I had to guess, this isn't anything that I was taught, but if I had to guess, it originated with the planet itself, with the Earth and stars, and it runs on the same principles as nature does. And so I think it developed independently in numerous places, but from that source, and that's why it has so much similarity.
As a New Age musician, how do you use sound and music in your spiritual work?
Well, for if we're talking about shamanism, that's where the drumming comes in because I use drumming or rattling to enter into the trance state. Okay, and that's pretty common, particularly in the Americas, is to use the drumming or the rattling to. But the didgeridoo does the same thing. Repetitive motion does the same thing. The whirling dervishes, that's what they're doing. So it's used there to enter the trance state. But also sound is vibration.
Hmm.
Vibration is frequency, and you can use that frequency to bring balance and unity into a situation through music.
Is there a difference between a trance state and and a state that is brought on by meditation?
Yes, quite a bit. Meditation is designed to calm the mind and center the body. Um, a trance state actually changes brainwave. Meditation does too, changes brainwave patterns. But the trance state takes it one step further in that the person goes into an interactive dream whereby they access the quantum level and get information that comes back in the form of metaphor and allegory. And then you translate that and get pretty darn accurate information.
Give us an example of that.
Well, okay, let's see. I was working on a client just
Hmm.
recently, and she had an aversion to water. She couldn't stand water. She terrified of it. Hates even taking a bath or a shower. Does it, but hates it. And so I went into a trance state to try to help her with this. This is what she wanted to work on. And I was in an interactive dream taken to a place where her mother would give her baths in way too hot water and just scrub the daylights out of her. Okay, from the time she was really, really small. And so I brought back her right to be in water and be safe, which is a frequency. Once I did that, her aversion, it took her a little while to integrate, but her aversion to water went away. And she actually started having some memories of that time when that was what was going on for her.
How much of shamanism is the placebo effect? If you confess it, you will possess it.
Well, how much of any healing is, because actually we are our own healers.
Hmm.
Okay, so if you can be enchanted into going into a state of balance, coming out of a state of imbalance and moving into a state of balance because you believe this person can show you how and you do it, it gets the job done, whether it's placebo or not.
But would a shaman tell the person that the possibility of what they are doing may in fact induce the placebo effect? Or does the shaman allow the person that has asked for their help to continue the misconception that everything that will be done is done because, or the cure is done because of the shamanistic rituals and not the placebo effect?
Well, I think we're kind of splitting hairs here. When I'm talking about a placebo effect, if you heal, you heal. And people take the placebo effect to mean that it isn't really healing, that it's you've tricked a person. It's not
Yeah,
really healing, but it
exactly.
is. It's healing. It's healing. However, when I'm working shamanically, I always let the person know that the ritual is just simply to help us access the information.
Okay,
The
hold on
ritual
there.
isn't the power is in the person.
Hold on. Let's talk about accessing the information when we come back from this final break. Exonation,
Sure.
our guest this hour, Gwilda Wiyaka. She is the host of the television and radio show Mission Evolution, as well as the great vignette series entitled Stairway to Heaven. To find out more about her radio shows and her her TV productions, as well as the vignettes that she has done, visit www.missionevolution.org or visit findyourpathhome.com. We'll be back as we wrap up this hour here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, on the X Zone Broadcast Network, Talkstar Radio Network, Mutual Broadcast Network, and your hometown radio, Classic 1220 CFAJ AM, streaming us at classic1220.ca. So whatever you do, don't go away. We'll be right back.
I stand now at the edge of the abyss, nowhere to go. The time has come, I must choose to take the leap or be laid low. This is the end of reason. Brilliant feathers of an unearthly hue glide by on the edge of his dream. A whisper of touch, an unheard song. Whose bird takes flight, prompted by his broken heart. Fly high, sweet phoenix, even though you are free. So above my broken life, bring your healing tears to me. Fly high, sweet phoenix, let your flame burn ever bright. Come lead this fallen warrior through his darkest night. Phoenix pierce the darkness, the firebird ignites. Diamond eyes seeking out her fallen warrior. She flies through the storm, she flies through the war. She flies to his side on his broken land of dreams.
Welcome back, everyone. Gwilda Wiyaka is our special guest. Her websites are www.missionevolution.org and findyourpathhome.com. First of all, Gwilda, thanks very much for sharing your time with us tonight. Always a great pleasure talking to you. Let me ask.
It's just a pleasure to be with you.
Thanks, dear. Let me ask you this. You've taught extensively. What core principle do you always try to instill in your students?
I have what I call the 5 basic laws of ethical shamanic practice. And one is you never practice without permission. Another one is you never take energy away from where it does belong. A third is you never put energy where it doesn't belong. And a fourth is you never do harm. I'm trying to think of the fifth. I can't think of my own rules here. But basically, you have to have ethics. Confidentiality is the other one. You have to have ethics. And you know, the good news about this stuff is it really works. And the bad news about this stuff is it really works. And if you don't practice with integrity, you can really get yourself and others into a lot of trouble.
If somebody wanted to become a practitioner, what would be their course of action?
Well, I do actually train practitioners. I have the original or the first portion of the training online and video classes so that, they can study them at home. And then when I have the advanced classes, they have the prerequisites. But, there are people that train modern day shamanic practitioners. I had a certified trade school of the shamanic arts, Colorado State Certified Trade School. And so you really have to look to see that the school is like in the state of Colorado, if you teach anything that can be used in an existing practice or as a practice, as far as a job, you have to be certified by the state of occupational schools. And there's a lot of people that teach, but they aren't certified. And so that's the first thing I look for is this teacher certified? Is this teacher following the laws of the state? Because if they're trying to slide under the rug, well, that's not a good place to start. Okay, there's some states where you don't have to have that. Then you just have to look at what their curriculum is. How long? Where did their teachers study? How long have they been in practice? And then of course you have to balance the cost with what they're offering.
How has the internet changed the shamanistic landscape?
Well, for better and for worse. In one sense, it's really helped because, it's. I remember the first time I heard of Michael Harner's group. It was way back when. It was before the internet was much of anything, and it was like I saw it in the back of a book, and I realized, oh, hey, there's other people doing this. Okay, I didn't even know. I mean, I felt like I was operating in a vacuum. It was really exciting to see that there were other people, doing this, bringing this forward. Now there's, all you have to do is get on Google and put in shamanism, and you get all sorts of stuff. That's the good part. But the bad part is you don't know what you're getting. You have to really, really be careful because there's the good, bad, and the ugly out there.
So I would imagine the phrase buyer beware applies here as well.
Absolutely, it does. Yes.
In your view, what role does intuition play in spiritual development? And do you use intuition in shamanism?
Yes. In fact, part of the shamanic training is honing intuition so that you can read a situation or you can read a patient, you can read the situation and see where the glitches are. I have a form that I've developed, I call it pattern tracing. So I'm listening to a person's story, they're telling me their story, but I'm kind of tracking to see where it goes off track so that it's like I can tell something's missing right there. Okay. And that's comes through my intuition. But it's something that you have to hone, you have to work. Everybody's style is a little different. Everybody's information comes through a little different. And that's one of the things I really, really work with my students on is how does it work for you? Because you are the tool.
At what age would you suggest someone, if they're interested in becoming a shaman, actually take it seriously and start looking for their mentor, their teacher?
Well, in tribal societies, of course, they would just watch their children and whatever aptitude they showed, if they went to, they'd go learn how to make arrowheads or they'd, learn how to make shields or they'd learn how to be a shaman. But in this day and age, like with the trade school, you had to be 16 to go to a trade school. So that said it. And, people are beyond that. They're kind of young to learn to be a practitioner. However, I have worked with children that were failing miserably in their lives. They were very young, but problem was they were very gifted. And so I've had children's classes. Some of my kids were like 4 and 5 years old, and I teach them how to journey. I teach them how to center. I teach them how to, work with the directions so they could find their center. And kids that had these very severe ADD or autistic even really came around. I mean, it didn't cure it, but it certainly made it more controllable for them.
How can people ground themselves these days, especially spiritually, in these times of global crisis or personal upheaval? You and I have talked about the geopolitical unrest, the financial world crisis. These are very trying times for people. How can we best ground ourselves, Gwilda?
It's so important that we do. And one of the things that's keeping us all off balance is polarization. We're being offered all these opportunities to form an opinion and polarize one direction or the other. It's encouraged, in fact, everywhere you go. If you're polarized, you aren't centered, right? You're pulled to one side or the other. You're way out of center. To center, it's a very simple process, and I teach it in the medicine wheel class. It's you work with the planet, okay? You call in the four directions. In other words, you get yourself outside somewhere, or you can
Okay.
even do it in your living room. You get a magnetic compass,
Mm-hmm.
you mark the four directions, you mark them down, you stand in the middle, and then you start with the east and just reach out to the east with your intention and think of all the things the east stands for, like springtime, sunrise. Then you turn to the south, do the same thing, summer, everlight. Okay. Turn to the west, sunset, harvest. Turn to the north, darkness, death, transmutation. And then center stands for sky, earth, and heart. And if you stand in the center, but you orient yourself to all of those directions and all of the things they stand for, that'll bring you right back into center. And if you do that on a daily basis, just a real quick ritual, there's ways prayers you can give, or whatever your style is going to be. And like I said, I've got teachings on that. But if you do that, and that's what the Wicca, they cast a circle, that's what that was about. The Native Americans, they do a medicine wheel, that's what that was about. It's just these rituals that help a person get oriented in time and space so that they can stand in the center of their circle. And that way you don't get pulled off. If you feel yourself starting to get all worked up over, what the president's doing, you're all worked up over what the neighboring country is doing, you can stop, take a deep breath, pull yourself back into that center, and all of a sudden you get a more balanced viewpoint about what's going on, and you're better able to receive the truth from both sides.
And there we have the saying, you're the center of your own universe.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Why is it important to bridge ancient wisdom with contemporary understanding these days?
Well, because we've gotten way off course, Rob. It's we've gotten to, well, there's this disease. The Native Americans call it Watiko. And it's basically this greed, this overwhelming, people have more money they can spend in their lifetime, and they still have to have more at the expense of the environment, at the expense of each other. That's an illness. There's nothing balanced about that. That's sickness. And the whole society has gone that route. I mean, we've lost track of family. We've lost track of each other. We're hooked up into, artificial games and screens and this and that, and go for a walk. Heaven forbid that. Um, we've totally lost our center. We've lost our balance. We've lost our values, and we can't go back to indigenous ways. There's way too many of us on the planet, but we can certainly go back to earth-based ways, to where we respect the earth and each other, and try to work in the best interest of all the above.
There are plenty of places on this planet that could support more people, and I have a bit of a problem with the concept that there are too many people on this planet. I just don't think that we have learned how to manage people on this planet properly.
Or they haven't learned to manage themselves.
That is
Exactly.
true.
No,
That
I
is
don't
true,
think
yeah.
there's too many people to go back to the hunter-gatherer days, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
Yeah, the land won't support that, but that doesn't mean there's too many people. We can manage it if we get over the greed.
I guess my last question for you tonight, my dear friend, is where do you see the evolution of human consciousness heading in this next decade?
That's an interesting question. It's a mixed bag. We are at a very volatile turning point, and we can either absolutely evolve to something that we can't even imagine. To heights that the reality can shift in such a way that it'll be amazing, or we're in a lot of trouble.
Well, I want to thank you so much for sharing your time with us here. And again, Exonation, thanks to Gwilda Wiyaka. She's a shaman, teacher, musician, and visionary guide, sharing powerful insights on healing, consciousness, and human evolution. To learn more, visit her online at www.missionevolution.org or findyourpathhome.com to listen to all of Gwilda's past radio shows of The Science of Magic, Mission Evolution, or Stairway to Heaven. Visit www.xzbn.net. Gwilda, thanks very much for joining us. Take care, and as always, I look forward to the next time you and I visit here in the X Zone.
Thank you, Rob.
Well, that's
Thank you
it
so
for
much.
this hour, Exonation. I'll be back on the other side of this break as hour number 2 of tonight's show commences right now. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell, coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. And you're listening to us streaming around the world on your hometown radio, Classic 1220.ca. Don't go away. We'll be back as hour number 2 of the X Zone is right in queue now.